no point during Killer is Dead do you have even the slightest clue about what's going on. This seriously strange hack-and-slash adventure is a disjointed mess of anime cliches, self-deprecating interludes, and the kind of outrageous jiggle physics and awkward sexism that would make even the biggest Dead or Alive fan blush. There is fun to be had here though, buried beneath the layers of anime nonsense, stark visuals, and button-mashing action, but you have to disengage the better part of your brain to experience it. And even then, it's not entirely worth it. Killer is Dead stars Mondo, a sword-swinging, emotionally tortured assassin with a sharp suit and a penchant for stealing blood to power his oversized gun arm. He's joined by an entirely forgettable array of characters at a government agency set up to execute bad guys in exchange for big wads of cash. That's about as much sense as you're going to get out of the story, because from there, it really goes off the deep end. By episode 3, you'll have fought a scantily clad man on the dark side of the moon, chopped the head off a minigun-toting serial killer, and fought a giant woman spider mutation in a topsy-turvy mansion inspired by Alice in Wonderland. And yet, by the time the end credits roll, you'll barely be any closer to understanding why, with abrupt cutscenes raising far more questions than they answer.
Oh, no! Thank you very much.
Similarly disappointing is the combat, which, despite instructing you to do otherwise, quickly devolves into a frenzy of button mashing. Part of the problem lies with combos failing to register a lot of the time, while the best abilities that make the combat even remotely fun can't be unlocked until you're way past the halfway point of the game. It all boils down to a lack of refinement, the sort of thing that makes a 20-hit combo in DMC look and feel as smooth as silk, and the witch time dodges of Bayonetta flow effortlessly from the fingers. Most of the time you fight sprightly bad guys armed with batons, hulking great beasts that charge towards you, and swift ninjas and samurai with impressive sword skills. And yet, despite their differences, the way you dispatch them is largely the same throughout. Launch a few attacks, quickly dodge out of the way, and land a few more. This quickly becomes tiresome. Side quests come in the form of challenges that are unlocked as you complete standard missions. However, some of them require you to find the sultry-voiced, sexually charged, and disturbingly bouncy nurse Scarlet. And while the sight of her riding around on a phallic syringe is probably enough filth for one game, Gigolo missions go one step further.
Why must you cause so much trouble?
In these interludes, you're asked to woo potential partners in an oddly placed minigame, taking mental snapshots of women and their bits to build up the guts to give them gifts and earn their love.
Do you feel satisfied?
It's difficult to feel anything but seedy after these missions, and they sit uncomfortably alongside the otherwise dark, noir tone of the game. While you could skip them, you miss out on rewards like new attachments for your gun arm. The game isn't all that challenging though, so these attachments aren't essential, but if you're after a tougher fight, an extra hard mode is unlocked after completing the game. That mode isn't enough to make you want to play through the entire thing again though, and the scoring system is inconsistent enough to render the online leaderboards largely irrelevant too. Truth be told, there's little here that makes Killer is Dead relevant, unless you have a voyeuristic curiosity about Japanese games and culture. It simply can't hold its own against its far more entertaining contemporaries. It's too immature, too confusing, and far too unrefined to be anything more than a strange, mildly amusing distraction.